I pulled into the parking lot of the Riverside Wellness Center, my hands trembling slightly on the steering wheel. At 62 years old, I never thought I'd be seeing a therapist. But here I was, 3 months into retirement, and I couldn't shake this fog that had settled over my life. My daughter-in-law, Ashley, had been the one to suggest it, actually. She'd found Dr. Sarah Chen's card and even made the appointment for me. "You've been so forgetful lately, Mom," she'd said, using that concerned voice that always made me feel like a burden. Dr. Chen's office was nothing like I'd imagined. Warm lighting, comfortable chairs, and she was younger than I expected, maybe early 40s, with kind eyes that seemed to see right through me. "Mrs. Patterson, please, have a seat," she gestured to a plush armchair. "Tell me what brings you here today." I settled in, clutching my purse. I don't even know where to start. I retired from teaching in June, and ever since then, I've felt lost. My son Daniel says I've been forgetting things, important things, bills, appointments, conversations we've had. I paused, feeling that familiar anxiety creep up. Sometimes I wonder if I'm losing my mind. Dr. Chen leaned forward slightly, her expression thoughtful. "What kind of things are you forgetting?" "Well, Daniel showed me credit card statements last month, charges I didn't remember making. Online shopping, apparently. And I missed 3 doctor's appointments that I swear I never knew about." My voice cracked. "My husband passed away 4 years ago, and I live alone now. Daniel and Ashley live just 2 blocks away, which is wonderful, but I hate being a burden to them." "You mentioned your son shows you credit card statements. Does he have access to your accounts?" "Oh yes, he insisted on it after Harold died. He said it would be easier if he could help me manage things. He's a financial advisor, you see, so he knows about these matters." I smiled weakly. I should be grateful. He's always looking out for me. Dr. Chen made a note but didn't comment. "Tell me about your typical day, Margaret." Over the next 45 minutes, I painted a picture of my new routine. Wake up around 9. I'd always been an early riser as a teacher, but now I seemed to need more sleep. Daniel would call most mornings to check on me. Ashley would often drop by with lunch, always commenting on how I needed to eat more, that I was looking thin. Evenings were the hardest long hours in front of the television until the sleep aid Daniel had picked up from the pharmacy kicked in. "What about your granddaughter? You mentioned Emma earlier with such warmth in your voice." I brightened immediately. "Emma's 16, and she's wonderful. We used to be so close, but lately, I trailed off. She seems distant. Daniel says she's just being a typical teenager, busy with school and friends, but I feel like something changed about 6 months ago." Dr. Chen set down her pen. "Margaret, I'd like to see you twice a week for a while. If you're open to it, I think we have a lot to explore together." I agreed, though part of me wondered if I was making too much of things. Daniel had always been such a good son. That night, I couldn't sleep despite the pill Ashley had left on my nightstand with a glass of water, like she did every evening when she just stopped by to check on me. I lay in bed, thinking about Dr. Chen's questions. Why had she seemed so interested in the details of my daily routine, in who had access to my accounts? The sessions that followed began to shift something inside me. Dr. Chen asked me to start keeping a journal, writing down everything I ate, every pill I took, every visitor, every phone call. At first, it seemed silly, but I humored her. "How are you feeling after you take your sleep medication?" she asked during our 3rd session. "Groggy," I admitted. "Really groggy. Sometimes I don't feel clear-headed until late afternoon." "And who prescribed this medication?" I paused. "Well, nobody prescribed it exactly. Ashley said her doctor recommended it for her mother when she had trouble sleeping, so Daniel picked it up for me. It's over the counter." Dr. Chen's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in her eyes. "Margaret, would you be willing to bring in all the medications and supplements you're currently taking? Just so I can get a complete picture." I agreed, though it seemed like an odd request. At our next appointment, I arrived with a shopping bag full of bottles. As I set them on her desk, even I was surprised by how many there were. Sleep aids, vitamins, supplements for memory, pills for anxiety, something for blood pressure. Dr. Chen examined each bottle carefully, making notes. "Margaret, I see several of these are opened, but there are no labels with dosage instructions. Who told you how much to take?" "Daniel and Ashley manage all that. They fill my pill organizer every Sunday. I felt defensive suddenly. They're just trying to help. I'm sure they are, Dr. Chen said gently. But I'd like you to try something for me this week. I want you to take only the medications that have a prescription label with your name on them from an actual pharmacy. Nothing else. But what about my memory supplements? And the vitamins? Just for 1 week. Will you try? Something in her tone made me agree, though I felt uneasy about it. That week changed everything. By day 3, without the supplements Ashley had been giving me, the fog started to lift. By day 5, I woke up at 6:30, clear-headed and alert for the first time in months. I made myself breakfast, something I realized I hadn't done in weeks. I walked to the small park 2 blocks from my house, a route I used to take every morning before retirement, and I started to remember things. Things that had been fuzzy before. I remembered Daniel insisting I sign papers updating my will about 8 months ago, though he'd rushed me through it, saying we needed to finish before Ashley got home with dinner. I remembered him saying I'd agreed to make him the beneficiary on my life insurance policy and my retirement accounts. Had I agreed to that? In the moment, with him using terms I didn't understand, I just nodded and signed where he pointed. I remembered Ashley commenting frequently about how terrible it must be to live alone, how much safer I'd be in an assisted living community where there were people around. I'd brushed it off as her worrying about me, but now, at our next session, I walked into Dr. Chen's office feeling more awake than I had in months. She noticed immediately. "Margaret, you look different." "I feel different." "Doctor Chen, what exactly did you suspect was in those supplements?" She set down her coffee cup and met my eyes directly. "Margaret, I can't be certain without testing them, but the combination of symptoms you described, the confusion, memory loss, excessive sleepiness, the way you described feeling disconnected from your own life, those aren't typical for a healthy 62-year-old woman. Especially not a recently retired teacher who was sharp enough to manage 25 students for 35 years. My hands started shaking. "You think someone was... what? Drugging me?" "I think someone may have been giving you substances that were affecting your cognitive function. Whether intentionally or through ignorance of proper dosing, I can't say for certain." She leaned forward. "But I'm concerned about the pattern I'm seeing. You have a son with power of attorney and access to your finances. You have a daughter-in-law who provides your daily medication without any medical oversight. You have significant assets from your husband's life insurance and your teacher's pension. And you've been increasingly isolated and confused." The room seemed to tilt. "What should I do?" "First, I think you need to see your actual physician and get blood work done. Tell them you want a full toxicology screen. Second, you need to check your financial accounts yourself, go to the bank in person. And third," she hesitated, "third, you might want to consult an attorney." I left that session feeling like the ground had shifted beneath my feet. But I also felt something else. Angry. After 40 years of teaching, of being sharp and capable and independent, had my own son really been manipulating me? The next morning, I went to my bank. The branch manager, Carol, had known me for 15 years. "Mrs. Patterson, how wonderful to see you. What can I help you with today?" "I'd like to review my accounts, please. All of them." What I discovered over the next 2 hours made my blood run cold. Over the past 8 months, there had been regular transfers from my savings account to an account in Daniel's name. $50,000. Total. When I asked about them, Carol pulled up the authorization forms. My signature was on each one, but I had no memory of signing them. "Mrs. Patterson, you came in with your son each time," Carol said carefully. "He said you were having memory issues and he was helping you manage your finances. Did I seem confused to you during those visits?" Carol looked uncomfortable. "You seemed quiet. A little sleepy, maybe?" "Your son did most of the talking." I thought back to those months, the constant fog, the way Daniel would say, "Remember, Mom, we talked about this," until I doubted my own memory. From the bank, I drove straight to my attorney's office. Robert Harrison had handled Harold's estate and had known our family for years. "Margaret," his face showed his surprise when his secretary showed me in. "I wasn't expecting you. Is everything all right?" "Robert, I need you to pull the will I signed 8 months ago. And I need to know if you prepared it." His confusion was genuine. "Margaret, you haven't updated your will since Harold passed." The one on file leaves everything in trust for Emma's education, with the remainder split between Daniel and the local library foundation, just as you and Harold planned. The floor seemed to drop away. Robert, I signed papers in October. Daniel said they were will updates. His expression hardened. I need you to tell me everything. 2 hours later, I left his office with a clear plan and a cold certainty settling in my chest. Robert had been explicit. What Daniel had done likely constituted financial elder abuse, possibly fraud. The papers I'd signed weren't will updates at all. They were power of attorney documents giving Daniel complete control over my assets and healthcare decisions. But there was more. Robert had contacted the realtor he'd recommended to me years ago, the one I'd supposedly met with last month about selling my house. Except I'd never met with any realtor. Daniel had, using the power of attorney to get an appraisal on my property. He was planning to sell my home. That evening, I did something I hadn't been able to do clearly in months. I made a plan. First, I stopped taking anything that didn't come directly from my doctor with a pharmacy label. Second, I went through my house and found the pill organizer Ashley filled every Sunday. I took photos of every pill in every compartment. Third, I set up a small camera in my kitchen, the kind parents use as baby monitors hidden in a plant arrangement. Then I waited. Sunday came. Ashley arrived with her usual cheery smile, carrying groceries and her own large purse. Hi, Mom. I brought you those cookies you love, and let me refill your pill organizer while I'm here. She moved to the kitchen counter where I kept the organizer. From my position in the living room, I watched her. But this time, I was clear-headed enough to really see. She didn't pull the vitamins from the bottles on my counter. Instead, she pulled bottles from her own purse, identical labels, but when she thought I wasn't looking, I saw her count out pills carefully, checking a note in her phone. My hands clenched on my coffee cup. Ashley, what kind of vitamins are those? She jumped slightly. Oh, just the same ones, Mom. I picked up extra at the store since you were running low. That smile again, bright and false. That night, I lay awake, rage replacing the fog that had defined my months. But I had to be smart. Robert had advised me to document everything before confronting them. The next morning, I drove to my doctor's office without telling anyone. Dr. Reynolds had been my physician for 12 years. When I explained what had been happening and requested the blood work, her face went pale. Margaret, if what you're suggesting is true, this is serious. We need to run a comprehensive panel. The results took 3 days. When Dr. Reynolds called me to come in, I knew it was bad from her voice. Margaret, your blood work shows elevated levels of several substances. Diphenhydramine, that's Benadryl, at levels consistent with regular overdosing. Also, traces of prescription sleep medication that you don't have a prescription for. And something else we had to send out for specialized testing. She paused, her hand shaking slightly as she pulled up the results. Low levels of a benzodiazepine. Margaret, someone has been systematically sedating you. The room spun. For how long? Based on your timeline and the levels we're seeing, probably 6 to 8 months, long enough for it to build up in your system. Long enough to affect your memory, cognition, and decision-making abilities. I felt tears prick my eyes, but they were tears of rage, not sadness. What do I do now? Now you call the police, Margaret. This is poisoning. This is abuse. Detective James Morrison sat in my living room 2 days later, listening to my story with an increasingly grim expression. I'd brought him everything, the blood work, the hidden camera footage of Ashley filling my pill organizer with unmarked pills, the banking records, the fraudulent power of attorney documents. Mrs. Patterson, what you're describing is elder abuse, fraud, and potentially attempted. He paused. We'll need to investigate further, but the levels of sedation you were under, combined with the financial manipulation. Do you have somewhere safe you can stay while we look into this? I'm staying here, I said firmly. This is my home. They're not driving me out of it. But I called my oldest friend, Janet, who came to stay with me, and I called Emma. My granddaughter arrived within an hour. Her face streaked with tears. The moment she walked through the door, she collapsed into my arms. Grandma, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I wanted to tell you, but Dad said. He said you were sick, that you wouldn't understand, and if I told anyone they'd put you in a home and I'd never see you again. I held her tight, my heart breaking. Emma, sweetheart, tell me what you know. The story that tumbled out confirmed my worst fears. Emma had overheard her parents talking 6 months ago. Daniel had gotten into debt, bad investments, money he'd borrowed from the wrong people. They needed cash fast. Ashley had suggested taking out a loan against my house. When that didn't seem like enough, they'd hatched a different plan. Dad said it was just to keep you calm, to keep you from worrying about things, Emma sobbed. But then you started getting so confused, and Mom kept saying how much better you'd be in a care facility. And Dad kept talking about how the house would sell for almost $1 million, how your retirement accounts were just sitting there. I heard him tell Mom that once you were declared incompetent, he could access everything. And the pills? Emma's face crumpled. Mom's a pharmacy technician. She knew what to give you to keep you sedated without it being obvious. Dad said it was just temporary, just until they got their finances sorted out. But it wasn't temporary, was it? Emma shook her head. Last week, I heard them talking about long-term care facilities. Dad said once you were placed there, with your dementia, he could make all the decisions. He could sell the house, manage your money, and nobody would question it because he had power of attorney. The investigation moved quickly after that. Detective Morrison got a warrant for Daniel and Ashley's home. They found detailed notes in Ashley's handwriting, dosing schedules, symptoms to watch for, a timeline for getting Mom settled in Riverside Memory Care. They also found that Daniel had already signed a contract to sell my house, forging my signature. The closing was scheduled for 2 weeks away. The money was going to pay off his debts and fund a business opportunity in Florida. They'd been planning to tell me I'd agreed to move to a care facility, that I just didn't remember. The hardest part was the confrontation. Detective Morrison wanted me to call Daniel, to act normally while they recorded the conversation. So I did. "Hey, Mom!" Daniel's voice was cheerful. "How are you feeling today?" "A little clearer, actually." "Daniel, I've been thinking about the house." A pause. "What about it, Mom?" "I don't remember agreeing to sell it." "Mom, we talked about this. Remember? You said it was too much for you to handle alone. You were worried about the stairs, the maintenance." His voice was patient, practiced. How many times had he used this tone with me? "What if I said I don't want to sell?" Another pause, longer this time. "Mom, you already agreed. I have power of attorney now, remember? I can make these decisions for you. It's for your own good. For my own good. Or for yours." The silence that followed was deafening. "What are you talking about? Mom, are you feeling confused again? Maybe I should come over. Have you been taking your vitamins?" "You mean the sedatives your wife has been giving me for the past 8 months? The ones that have been keeping me foggy and compliant while you emptied my bank accounts?" I heard his breath catch. "Mom, you're not making sense. You're having one of your episodes. I'm coming over right now. Don't do anything until I get there. Don't bother Daniel. The police are already here." The trial took place 4 months later. By then, I was fully myself again. Clear-headed, strong, and angrier than I'd ever been in my life. The evidence was overwhelming. The toxicology reports, the bank records showing $50,000 in unauthorized transfers, the forged power of attorney documents, the hidden camera footage of Ashley deliberately filling my pill organizer with sedatives, the recording of Daniel admitting he had control over my decisions, the contract to sell my house with my forged signature, text messages between Daniel and Ashley discussing my placement and their plans for my assets. Ashley's attorney tried to argue she was just following her husband's instructions, that she didn't understand the severity of what she was doing. But the prosecution presented evidence of her Google searches, how to sedate elderly parent, signs of dementia versus medication, side effects, power of attorney over incompetent parent. Daniel's defense was even weaker. He claimed he was just trying to protect me from myself, that I'd been making poor decisions. But when the prosecution asked why, if he was so concerned about my well-being, he'd never taken me to a doctor for a proper dementia evaluation, he had no answer. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Daniel was convicted on multiple counts: elder abuse, fraud, forgery, and financial exploitation. 7 years in prison. Ashley got 4 years for her role in the systematic sedation and conspiracy to commit fraud. The power of attorney was voided. The house sale was canceled. Robert helped me recover the money they'd transferred, plus damages. I kept every penny they'd tried to steal. It was mine, earned through 40 years of teaching, saved with Harold over a lifetime of marriage. But the real sentence wasn't what the judge handed down. It was watching my son stand in that courtroom and realize he felt no remorse, only anger that he'd been caught. It was knowing that he'd been willing to sacrifice my health, my autonomy, and my future for his own financial gain. Emma testified against her parents. It couldn't have been easy for her, but she did it anyway. She told the court everything she'd seen and heard. When the guilty verdicts were read, I saw her shoulders sag with relief. Afterward, in the courthouse hallway, she asked me the question I'd been dreading. "Grandma, can you forgive them?" I thought about it for a long moment. "I don't know, sweetheart. They didn't just steal my money. They stole 8 months of my life. They made me doubt my own mind. They were willing to lock me away in a facility so they could have what they wanted. That's not something you forgive easily." "I understand," she whispered. "But Emma, you did nothing wrong. You were 16 years old, and they manipulated you just like they manipulated me. I want you to know that. She's living with me now. The court granted me custody or guardianship, I suppose, though she's almost 17 now and hardly needs one. Her parents' rights were terminated after the conviction. She has her own room, painted the color she chose. We have dinner together every night. I help with her homework, and she helps me with technology I still don't quite understand. I went back to work, part-time. Not teaching full-time, I earned my retirement. But I volunteer at the local literacy center 3 days a week, helping adults learn to read. It turns out I wasn't ready to stop making a difference. And I started speaking. First at a local senior center, then at larger events. I tell my story, all of it. The fog, the manipulation, the betrayal, but also the recovery, the justice, and the reclaiming of my life. I want other seniors to know the signs of financial elder abuse. I want them to know they have power, even when someone tries to take it away. Dr. Chen still sees me, though now it's just once a month, and it's less about therapy and more about 2 women having coffee and talking about life. She saved me, in a very real way. Her instinct that something was wrong, her refusal to accept the simple explanation, her gentle pushing for me to see the truth, all of it gave me back my life. Last week, I turned 63. Emma threw me a party. My friends from the literacy center came. Janet was there, of course. Dr. Chen stopped by. We ate cake and laughed, and I realized something. I'm happier now than I've been in years. Not despite what happened, but because of what I did about it. I think about Daniel sometimes. He writes me letters from prison, long, rambling things that never quite manage to say, "I'm sorry." He wants me to visit. He wants me to put money in his commissary account. He wants me to write to the parole board when his time comes. I file the letters away unread. People ask me if I feel guilty. A mother is supposed to forgive her child, they say. Family is family. But I learned something through all of this. Family isn't just blood. It's not about who shares your DNA. It's about who shows up for you. Who tells the truth, even when it's hard. Who puts your well-being before their own wants. By that measure, Daniel stopped being family the first time he crushed those pills into my vitamins. And Emma became more my daughter than my granddaughter the day she found the courage to tell me the truth. I'm 63 years old. I'm healthy, I'm clear-headed, and I'm free. I own my own home. I manage my own money. I make my own decisions. And every morning, when I wake up without that fog, I'm grateful. Grateful to Dr. Chen for seeing what others missed. Grateful to Detective Morrison for taking me seriously. Grateful to the jury for believing me. Grateful to Emma for her bravery. But most of all, I'm grateful to myself for having the strength to fight back when it would have been easier to just let the fog take me. For trusting my instincts when everyone around me said I was confused. For choosing to reclaim my life instead of accepting the prison they'd built for me. I still have bad days. Days when I wonder how my own son could have done this to me. Days when I mourn the relationship we'll never have again. Days when I'm angry all over again at what they tried to take from me. But I also have good days. Days when Emma and I laugh over breakfast. Days when I help someone at the literacy center read their first complete sentence. Days when I look around my home, that I kept, that I fought for and feel proud of who I am. They say you can't cheat time. But in a way, I did. I got back 8 months they stole from me, not by turning back the clock, but by refusing to let them take one more second. I'm Margaret Patterson. I'm a retired teacher, a grandmother, a volunteer, and a survivor. I'm 63 years old, and I'm just getting started.